Hey, Elden Ring is coming out in around half a year and it is easily one of my most anticipated games. Leading up to the release, I was thinking about a feature of FromSoftware's Souls games that I would love them to fix for Elden Ring. And it is the controversial topic of invasions. In this video I'm gonna explain why invasions are broken based on each of the Souls games, and I'm gonna offer some solutions on how I would fix it for the upcoming Elden Ring. So let's get right into it. Since the OG Demon's Souls in 2019, each of FromSoftware's games offered the opportunity for players to invade other players as Red Phantoms or a variation of that and kill the host of that game. The only exception is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, which skipped co-op and PvP altogether. I personally think this idea is awesome. It creates this amazing tension when you get the message that invaders in your game, and in theory these encounters can be super thrilling, and it can be also of course really fun to just invade another player and just ruin their day. So I'm not a hater of the invasion system per se, I just really don't like how the different games have implemented it, and I'm gonna give you some examples based on the conditions that have to be met to make yourself susceptible to invasions in each of the games. The games that I would consider the main Souls games, so Demon's Souls, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, each feature a different item that you have to use in order to make yourself susceptible to invasions. Those are the Blue Stones in Demon's Souls, Humanity in Dark Souls 1, Human Effigies in Dark Souls 2 and Embers in Dark Souls 3. Each of them kind of work similar, but each of them have a similar problem and each of them is differently not balanced. The system just doesn't give enough initiative for more seasoned players to actually make themselves susceptible to invasions, because the systems in place are so easily bypassed or they're simply not worth using. Let me actually run through how the systems work in each of the games. In the original Dark Souls, you can use the Humanity item in order to reverse hollow yourself and regain your human form. That allows you to use further Humanity to kindle bonfires once you get the right item to that, and it allows you to summon other players as phantoms or NPC phantoms. It also actually changes some of the dialogue with some of the NPCs. Apart from that, you don't get any actual benefits. If you're not interested in summoning help because you want to play the game for yourself, there's actually very little reason to play the game in the human form. You pretty much only have downsides. It's really unbalanced. So you can just basically stay human to do a few quests and spend the majority of the game in hollow form without having any problems, resulting in very little invasions taking place. It seems like FromSoftware was aware of this problem, because in Dark Souls 2 they tweaked the system a little bit. So in that game you have the item Human Effigy, which has a lot of characteristics of humanity, but the way that hollowing and the human form works is different. Using that item still restores your human form and lets you summon NPCs and other players for help, but when you die you don't just lose your human form right away, you actually with each death lose a chunk of your HP meter. That creates a situation where over time, if you want to access the full potential of your HP, you have to pop one of these human effigies in order to fill it up to maximum again. So in theory, you actually have to make yourself susceptible to invasions from time to time, or you have to just choose to play the game with a low HP meter. I think this is probably one of the best implementations of the system, simply because it really spreads the areas where you make yourself susceptible to invasions over the whole game, simply because it has to happen anytime you have died for a couple of times. But again, I think the initiative to really become someone who gets invaded frequently is not really there. It's more like a chore. It's like you are forced to engage with it, and it again makes the people that are dying often susceptible to this, instead of giving an initiative for seasoned players to actually take the risk and giving them a reward for actually doing so. In this game they also actually added a feature that negates the whole effect of this. So you can also burn an human effigy at each bonfire, and that gives you a 30-minute buff that protects you from other players invading you. But I don't really see why it's there, because you could just play offline. Dark Souls 3 then goes a step back again. You can pop an ember to become kindled, which gives you the same benefits as always, so now you can engage in cooperation, and on top of that you get a small HP boost for the duration of being kindled, so until you die once. As I said, I think that that's a step back because the HP boost is not significant enough to make yourself susceptible to invasions. The trade-off is just not balanced. HP, I feel, is one of the stats that, especially for seasoned players, is the most insignificant because your aim is to not get hit anyway. And I think also for players who are new to the game and might not be as skilled, it is the same way that they feel a bit more HP might be nice, but it's still not worth it to get invaded by other players for it. So I feel again that the system is not working as intended. I choose to talk about Demon's Souls last out of these 4 games, even though it's the first one, because Demon's Souls system is super interesting, but I think it is also one of the most flawed if you look at it from an invasion perspective. In Demon's Souls you have these blue stones that act in a similar fashion to the other items, that they make you susceptible to invasions but also allow you to summon help. The added layer is though that you only have your full health meter when under the effect of the stone, else you have only half of your health and even less if your world tendency is low. But the big problem is that dying in human form inside a level lowers the level's world tendency. What that does is not only making the enemy stronger in that level, but it also messes up your progress towards the quests in the game, which is not easily to fix. So each of the worlds in Demon's Souls has NPCs or areas that you can only enter when you have pure white world tendency. But in order to achieve pure white world tendency, you have to beat all the bosses in each of the levels without once dying in body form. So what seasoned players of Demon's Souls pretty much do is play the whole game in phantom form. So the players that want to see everything in Demon's Souls usually play the whole game with half their health, and that is actually not that hard to do because one of the first rings you find is the Cling Ring, which increases your health in phantom form, which makes it way easier to manage that. And then every time you beat a boss, you pretty much go back to the Nexus and jump down from one of the high points so that you die inside the Nexus, because when you die there, the world doesn't get darker from your death in body form. And what that results in is that you pretty much play the game without ever being invaded, unless maybe when you're done with everything, you pretty much avoid being invaded altogether. So the only people that actually are invaded during a normal playthrough and don't know that are new players probably who don't want to be invaded, probably new players that feel like they need the HP boost and might not even understand the complicated system of world tendency in Demon's Souls. So I think with Demon's Souls actually the system is the worst, because the downsides to being in the susceptible form are just so high that it makes zero sense for you to actually make yourself vulnerable like that. And then there's Bloodborne, where FromSoft actually went super experimental, but I think they still didn't nail the system properly. So in Bloodborne there's no being alive and hollow system, but there's a currency called insight that builds up. And how invasions work in that game is pretty much when you engage in co-op activities using these different bells or trying to invade people, you have to use your insight currency. So if you have 0, you can pretty much not do it. Every time you use one of these bells, there's a chance that a so-called Bell Maiden is spawned in that level. That is an NPC which basically now makes that stage susceptible to other people invading it. And you have to find that enemy and kill it in order to turn it off. There's also some levels in the game that have such a Bell Maiden from the start in it. On a playthrough when you don't engage in cooperation are the only times when you actually encounter invaders, at least in my experience. I think Bloodborne's system is an interesting one, but I think it has the same problem that again it punishes people who are already struggling with the game in making them susceptible to potential invasions, instead of actually using a real risk-reward system that is aimed towards seasoned players. So the common theme with all these systems is that the only players that get invaded are those that really choose to play that way because they want to engage in PvP, or players that actually need help progressing and then get punished for it. And I kind of believe that the developers think that playing the games in co-op makes them too easy, and therefore they think that the players should be punished for it with this system. But I think instead of punishing people for trying to make the game easier, it should be the other way around, that you should actually be better rewarded for making yourself susceptible to invasions and to take the risk of letting other players come to your game and potentially ruining your progress. So because of this, I thought of some ideas that could potentially be implemented in Elden Ring or any future FromSoftware RPG in the Souls style. My first idea is to let the player choose to be susceptible to invasions and in the same vein increase their progress, a bit in the way that Dark World tendency works in Demon Souls. When the world is dark, all the enemies are stronger in Demon Souls, but they also give you more souls and have a higher percentage of dropping items. In Elden Ring they could add something similar, that you basically choose at a shrine or something similar to like the Demon Bell in Sekiro or the Covenant of Champions in Dark Souls 2, that you make yourself susceptible to invasions, but at the same time you get these benefits. But I think the flaw with that idea would be that you would probably just use it for limited times for farming sessions, and probably it would lead to certain areas becoming the PvP sections, just pretty much like the woods in Dark Souls 1 or the different bell areas in Dark Souls 2. I think along these lines could be a solution, but I think it's not perfect because something similar was already in the old games. And I want a system basically that makes you want to engage in that risk of being invaded for the whole game. So my second idea for a solution actually comes from Dark Souls 3, where you are a kindled person. So your character is crackling a bit with fire, and I thought, wouldn't it be a cool idea to only be able to light bonfires while you yourself are kindled? You could even make sense in the lore of that, where basically only if you have the fire in you, you can use it to unlock the next checkpoint. You could first explore the world if you want to in your unkindled form, but if you actually reach the bonfire, you can't kindle it. And of course you could also choose to right away explore the world in the kindled form and have invasions happening all the time. I really like this idea, but I also see how there's a big flaw in making it so mandatory. Maybe some of you have an idea how it could be tweaked to balance it for offline play. My final idea for a solution is to make certain areas and therefore certain loot only available while you are in a susceptible state to invasions. I was inspired by that, by the areas in Demon Souls that you can only access when you are in a white or black tendency, and a similar thing could be done for Elden Ring or any other future FromSoftware title, where certain parts of the level just can't be explored unless you are in that state. For that to actually work, I think it has to be implemented into the core of the game though, where areas have to be substantial and not just a room with a chest that you can just run to and then afterwards never engage in that state again. So you actually have to spend a considerate amount of time in that extra area, and it should really motivate you to play the whole game in that setting where you can get invaded anytime. But it also gives you enough rewards to really make it fun and worthwhile to do that. I personally think there can be arguments against any of my solutions, but I think you get the core of it. There needs to be a bigger motivation for seasoned players to actually want to play the whole game in a state where they can get invaded constantly. And I think also it probably should not be limited to items that are valuable. For example, constantly risk losing that currency item that you could also use for other things. Then of course you're not going to use it just for the fun of being invaded, even if you like getting invaded, because maybe you're saving human effigies for later for that Dark Diver quest, for example, or you need the blue stones in Demon Souls because later you want to go to pure black world tendency. So I think there needs to be a toggle like the Demon Bell in Sekiro or something like that in order to constantly let players experience the thrill of getting invaded. I'm super interested what you guys think about this. Do you guys think that invasions are problematic in the way that they are like right now, or do you not care about them anyway? And if you see the same problem that I see, what do you think of my proposed solutions, and what solutions would you implement in Elden Ring or any future FromSoftware title to make invasions more fun and balanced? Thank you for watching my video, thank you for checking out my channel, bye.